Hello, everyone out there. It's Karen Benz from Show Studio, and I'm very, very excited to be talking about the subject of reality in fashion. So Show Studio takes a serious reality check on, what's going on in fashion and how do you really make it? What are the key points that are necessary as a brand? Or, even if you're going in to work with a brand, what are the necessities that give you all the opportunities that you need to make it? I am here with an incredible team of speakers, and I would like to have everyone introduce themselves by name and what they do.
Hi, I'm Laura, the buying director of ING Concept Stores in China and the business manager for the brand Didou.
I'm Shaquille multidiscipline fine artist and wordsmith.
I'm Cozette McCreery. I'm a fashion consultant and also a once recipient of the New Gen Award.
I think when you talk about fashion, it's more than, I guess going to college and, looking at brands when you're young and saying to yourselves you want to work in fashion. Working in fashion is a whole nother world than what we see, I guess, on TV, on social media, and in magazines. It's a world behind that. And I think we need to dig a little bit deeper on, the reality of it and how to sustain yourself once you take that first dip into the fashion industry. I don't know, I want to talk about, I guess, when you go to college and you come out and you want to start a brand, and if it's a brand you want to start or if it's a job you want to get. I guess you have to prove yourself in college with the intensity of your creativity. How would you like to describe your point of view on that?
Well, I didn't come through the traditional college route. I started working in the fashion industry as like a fittings model, did a bit of modeling as a teenager, and then just sort of fell in meeting the right people through doing clubs in London. And then I started working with people like Jasper Conran and Max Mara and all of sort of people like that. But when Sid Bryan, Joe Bates and I started Sibling, it was out of a sort of a necessity. We just really, really wanted to do a project. And it almost became like this crazy, all-encompassing thing that none of us really knew why we wanted to do it. People kept telling us, don't start a fashion brand, especially a menswear brand, especially a knitwear brand at the time. And we just had this complete and utter urge to do something. It was like proving a point almost, I think, for us anyway.
How do you see it from an artist's point of view?
Coming into the fashion industry. I guess it's I got a lot of friends that they studied fashion. I got into the fashion industry by doing a TV show, so I got into the fashion industry more than they did, and I think it's because there's no set infrastructure. It's like when you go to schools, how they don't teach you about taxes, you kind of have to figure it out on the ground. So I felt like with that, I went to Westminster, and a lot of my friends, they did really well there. I'm saying they should be up there. But beyond the graduate fashion show, it doesn't, unless to be quite real, to get into the fashion industry, you really just need to kiss ass. And if you're not kissing the right ass,
you're keeping it real.
Yeah.
Wow.
So unless you're doing that, it's not you can be as talented as you want, but there are people in the fashion industry, in this region, in England, in London, in New York, and all over the world that might not be technically skilled to be in their position or as deserving as others who really have worked their butts off. But I think sometimes one thing that they need to teach or they need to show people is what it really means to network and what it really means to schmooze a little bit. And I feel like that is the main way you're gonna kind of get somewhere. And I think that's also how you're gonna solidify your spot. You need to be sowing seeds. But I think the way you're gonna be like at your optimum best, if you wanna be like an Alexander McQueen, in the midst of all of that, you still need to focus on the craft as well. Because when you're undeniable, they will never deny you, you know? So I think it's just a mixture of kind of like the two. But it's not a fair game, but you know, all's fair in love and war and fashion.
And a lot of it's luck as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's luck to get picked up by, you know, an incredible buyer, or it's luck to be picked up by or get a really good review.
That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it really
So important.
it makes such a difference. And you know, we were very lucky with Sibling because, you know, we were older. So collectively, we'd been networking since forever. So we could call on Katie Grand to style our first show, and you know, and just having that. I mean, you know, she got us like, you know, Cara to do one of our shows. We didn't have that power, but then other people who have that power kind of get round you and support you. And you're right. I mean, you know, we hope we didn't kiss a lot of asses, but
I don't think, no, but I think you had a reputation within the fashion industry through the nightlife like I did. I started it through the nightlife. Everyone thought I looked dope. So everyone was like, oh, maybe you're in fashion. I didn't even realize I was fashionable. I was just doing my thing. And, you know, that can also happen too.
Yeah.
Being in the right place at the right time. But at the same time, we talk about this in creativity and you know, how you start and who you're going to see and who you're going to hook up with and who's going to see your work and all that. But from a buyer's point of view, does that matter? What is it that you're actually looking for when you see a brand that's starting out?
I think it's also about identity. Like, it's really important for brands because right now there is so many brands existing on the market, and unfortunately you see brand existing for 2 or 3 seasons getting a lot of traction because, as you say, they keep the right asses and everything, but then after 3-5 seasons you don't hear about them anymore. Because I think consistency in a branding identity, it's super important, and this is what we're looking for. We're looking for brands that can stay in the long-term view, but also being kind of commercial enough, because it's great to be creative and to have like this kind of stage moment during a show, but then on a buyer's perspective, we're looking to sell to clients, and then it's completely different approach. Like, there is brands that are like a lot of traction, but then when you go into the showroom and you're like, okay, what can I buy to like still keep the consistency on the brand on the racks in a store, tell a story, but also like have people buying it in a way.
Yes.
So.
I mean, I was thinking before we came here, the brand Charlotte Knowles. And, you know, when I saw one of her first shows in Fashion East, I thought, another bustier, okay. But she didn't do just a bustier. You know, she created a silhouette that probably hasn't happened for 20 years. She redeveloped it. She made it a little bit more simpler to wear. And she also made it for every woman's size. That did not happen before. So she not only gave you back something that people are probably a bit desperate to have, which is to feel sexy, but she gave it an edge that so many different size girls can wear it and feel their life. They weren't feeling their life. Like, no one, you get a girl size 14. She's not going to buy bustier because of Charlotte Knowles. She started a trend. She started a vibe that everybody was like, me too. You know, you can see Lizzo in the Charlotte Knowles feeling no type of way. You know, and that for me is like what you're saying. It's something to follow. It's something to talk about. The conversation is endless. Whether it's for everybody or not, it works. And every season, she gives you Charlotte. She's not interested in what everybody's telling her to do, or she probably doesn't listen to what anybody says anyway. And because she's so strong in her name, it's a wrap. the first or second season, I saw her. I went to a trip in LA. She's in the best shop in LA, like quarter of the shop. Everybody's going in to get her stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, that is a great example of what you don't expect to work to blow out.
Yeah, but that's also a nod to like Lulu Kennedy and Fashion East. I mean, just seeing how Fashion East has how their sort of curation has changed over the years. I mean, I think Fashion East this season that was, you know, just shown a few days ago or what have you, I mean, there was real grown-up clothes. I mean, I remember, you know, doing the door at Fashionista at the very beginning, and it definitely had that feeling of I've just come out of college or university and here's my collection, which is absolutely okay. But it's like everybody has shifted to thinking, okay, find your brand identity early, and then let's see how you can market it, see how your branding is. And I think a lot of that must be coming through education, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, but still sometimes I think I have a problem with the education, because I think they tell everyone they're wonderful before they are.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm seeing and hearing from young designers. Number two, they can only be a designer. So if they don't have their own brand and designer, they can't work in fashion. No. There's about 1,000 jobs in fashion.
Yeah.
You know, and you as well, coming from the art world, nothing has stopped you to be able to dip into it. You know, and like you said, you didn't go to school for fashion. Yeah. Meanwhile, you're all in. You know what I mean? And you're doing your thing, and it's working. And I don't think there should be, you know, a limitation on what they're being told in school about working in fashion. Let's say I'm going to ask you as a buyer, and I said this before on Show Studio, how it would be great to have buyers to come in and see the beginning of the journey. Mm-hmm. Because then also a buyer who also has so many connections, they can maybe suggest, you know, I really love what you do, but maybe I can introduce you to this brand, and maybe this brand can get you a job.
Totally.
You know, the ego has to be out the door.
Oh, yeah.
It's not all about I'm the designer. It's about really what you have to offer.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlotte knows. She just knew what she was doing, and she does it really well.
And I think the craftsmanship, as you said, you can really feel it in the brand. Like the quality is just not just the shoes, not just the bag, but any clothing. Like the leather, like every material they use is really qualitative. Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect it, would you? It's like
I wouldn't, because at the beginning I was like, she made her stuff in England, like everything you expect, like, okay, it's a young designer. And then when you go into the showroom and you step into, like, you start to touch, as you said, the corset, the jacket, and you're like, wow. And then the shoes, the bag, and you really feel like there is something, like the quality is there.
You know, she's not playing any games. And I think it's because she doesn't listen to too many people.
Yeah.
Sometime in fashion, these young kids that come in, they listen to their friends and anybody that probably wants to work with them. I'm not saying that they're not getting great advice, but they really have to stop and think, are they strong enough as a brand?
Yeah.
Or should they try and get a job from it? I think that's really, at least an addition to what they've been told in school. It's great to talk about it in this way, because hopefully some young designers are actually listening to this and just kind of stepping back and thinking about it and thinking, well, who am I? You know, am I in this to be fabulous, or I am in this because I love fashion, and whatever it is that I can do well, I'm going to do it, because it's better to do something well than try to be fierce and do something that you can never achieve. You know, and I think as people in the industry, we should try more and more to encourage that. Now, as far as, like we said something about Charlotte knows, as far as about business is concerned, of course, we can talk about, you know, who just won the Elizabeth Award, Labrum, the brand Labrum menswear.
Yeah.
I think he was a lot smarter than people thought he was, because people considered him as a African designer.
Yeah.
Instead of considering him as a menswear designer with an African influence.
Yeah.
You know, what are your views as a buyer on that brand?
I think I also like the consistency, and like I like it because when you see it, it tells a story, but at the same time, you see the commercial aspect, you see exactly where it's going, and I think this is quite mature for a brand. Like, it's quite hard sometimes to realize, like, sometimes it's too staged in a way, but like, this time is really, he knows where he goes. He really
knows where he's going, It's also kind of reminding me, I mean, I wouldn't compare it because I don't compare anyone to a designer that's from the past, because we've all been influenced by them. But I think of Joe Casey-Hayford as one of, the only Black menswear designers, @1 out. And of course, God rest his soul, he's no longer here. But what he was able to achieve at such a young time, as such a young man, he was so successful so early because he was so strong in his identity. But he understood the business, and I think Labrum has, not that he stepped into his shoes, but evidently there's a reflection there of a strong identity, but also that everyone can wear the clothes just because he's African and his influence gives you that African feeling and color and shape and things. Everybody can wear it. So that's another thing about business too. It's like, it shouldn't matter whatever color you are as a designer. What matters is the product and how it can look on so many different people. Yeah. For me, I think when you're thinking of business, in order to sell your brand, you have to also show it in your casting that everybody can wear it and look beautiful equally in it.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree. Like, I genuinely feel like his stuff is just, it's beautiful. It's like looking at art. Like, and I didn't get a chance to go to the show this time, but I think I went to a show about maybe last season. And just the whole, do you know what it is as well? It's also about the atmosphere, and I think the community that he builds as well at his shows, it's like consistent support from the same people. And you can always see like it's starting to feel a bit like a family. I think someone who kind of does this as well is Tolu Coca. She's like really well at like executing these clothes with like African influence, but it's something that everybody wants to be seen in and everybody wants to feel like they can be part of, and she always makes that like very accessible. And I think you're right, when it comes to business, that's what it's about. It's about, creating a community that everyone can kind of, as well as buy into, but also it's not even about the whole buying aspect. I feel like good business is things that you just want to be a part of and want to do. And yeah, I just feel like, it's just really good work. And I think it goes back to what I was saying about, making your stuff undeniable. And when you do that, it's just like everybody just wants to be part of like, what you're doing, and that is good business.
Because in the end, we're all kind of selling the same things. But, it was very important for me, especially doing the casting for Sibling, that it reflected my own friends group. So I didn't want it to be a certain thing. And also, it was important for us because, it was very sparkly and quite bright and everything else. We didn't want it on androgynous looking models. We wanted these sort of, big sort of, 90s Versace advert kind of guys wearing it. Exactly. And then we really got, because that was such a limited number of models that we could actually choose from, because they weren't really very popular. They would do our shows all the time, and then they would suggest other people, they would suggest friends, or they would kind of almost like street cast each other, and then they started calling themselves the Sibling Squad. And then the moment you've kind of got that and you keep to it and you realize that you've actually built this community beyond, we didn't come up with that hashtag, these guys did, and it was like, wow, this is something that then other people can feel like they can join. So you end up being more inclusive that way as well.
I mean, when I first saw Sibling, it used to remind me of, well, it didn't remind me of it completely, but it gave me the vibe of Body Map, where it was a community. Yeah. And everybody that was involved were usually people that they hung out with, but they were all extremely talented. And I think that's also a London thing. Yeah. More than any place else you go. Because it's such a free faller. Yeah. It's like, if we all go out together and we all have a look, why don't we do something about it? Yeah. Like, why don't we make it a business?
I feel like that's like Mowalola. I feel like she hit the nail on the head with that. Like you see like the same, like, you know, you always see her with like Delta Black, you always see her with like Chi, like she's got like a whole community that the whole world wants to be part of, and she's slotted herself into like really interesting positions. Like I saw she just did the Dre collab,
Yes.
which is like, and then that, but before that you got the Brat doll as well, and it's just creating this very unique, this very unique community. You know what I mean?
But I always feel with her that she does things and she does collaborations because they feel right to her.
There you go.
So that authenticity then goes.
100.
I mean, with the Bratz doll, I couldn't actually think of who else could have done it
Yeah.
as well as that. You know, it just felt very authentic.
Or even this like collaboration with Dre, like it was just like, it's not so designed, but the concept behind is so strong.
It's
And I think also then you see the campaign photographed by Hugo, like it really gives like, it gives something, like it creates a need from like a consumer.
Yeah.
When you're part of the community, she's connected to music and like it all makes sense and you want it, you know?
Yeah.
And she's clever because she does collaborations, you know, that pay her, and pay her well. And when we're talking about business, you know, the fact of the matter is that in order, if you're in the UK especially, in order to keep your business going, you do have to look at sponsorships and grants and collaborations and, you know, maybe even teaching or what have you. You need to pull in, especially at the beginning, and then at a sort of that dodgy 8 to 10 years where everything feels like it's got too big and you're not quite sure how to cope with it. You need to be bringing other pots of money in to keep your business going.
Exactly.
And that can be tough. I mean, for me, it was a full-time job finding myself, Sid and Joe basically decided we didn't want to pay out for our shows.
Yeah.
So it became a full-time job finding sponsorships just to raise money to do those shows and pay for the collections. And we were very bloody minded about it. But because we had something that people wanted to be part of, we were able to, you know, get money from places.
I mean, I think it's helpful for these brands too, when they're looking on their teams, what their teams are really bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Are they bringing, you know, reality to them? That's why this is a reality check. Are you going to make money if you show your collection like this? Are you going to have enough for the buyers to feel that when that rack is in that shop, at least 75% of that rack is going to sell before the sale? You know, we can all dream all day long, but if we want to stay on top, if not on top, at least stay in the game somewhat, reality has to sink in a lot deeper. You know, I will always say, keep your dreams, but have someone on your team that's telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Because I see all these young people surround themselves by people that say yes. They'll be saying yes back to the fact that they'll be going back home and living at home with their parents.
Yeah.
But
You don't need people that say yes to you. You need people that tell you the truth.
Yeah.
and I think
As a buyer, is it important for you, like what showrooms people are part of, or are you quite flexible?
actually, I'm quite flexible, but I know that it matters a lot for designers. Like I hear a lot of designers in school or young graduate, they're asking for advice for showroom. And talking about showroom, this is something so frustrating for me because like there is big showroom based in London or like in Italy that would take a brand and just to do their KPI, shrink it, like to maybe over-distribute it. And this is a reality now. And as you said, like about collaboration, this is totally true. Like working also with a young designer, like we have to think even after this show, like what's going to be the next collaboration, because you cannot sustain just with wholesale or like you risk to over distribute your brand. And then when it's everywhere, so then there is the pricing the pricing difference gonna kill your market. There is all of those, like, for example, far-fetched price. It's kind of like, it's bad for the market in a way. And I think like, when you think about showroom, for some of the buyers, it's really important, like which showroom, with which showroom you are and everything. But I think for me, it doesn't matter. I'm quite flexible. But I also, sometimes I see brands going into a showroom they're having a great sell-through for 3 seasons because they over-distribute the brand. And then you're a store, you're located 100, 200 meters, you see another store having the same selection.
That's
and
not
this
good.
can really kill the brand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like specifically for China, like this happened, and I'm always talking to the showroom and I'm like, please, do not over-distribute the brand because you're killing the brand actually. But then they're like, oh yeah, but we need to make this amount of money for the brand to survive. So as you said, collaboration, sponsorship, this is things that we don't learn at school, but this is so important to sustain a brand as well. So like Mowalola, she can really bring a community together, and I guess it's easier to find like relative collaboration to it, and this is really a smart way to do it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because I've worked with so many designers and stuff like that. It's like, you want to also do the right collaboration, like Mowalola does. She makes the right choice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
About the right choice. And evidently someone's around her telling her the truth,
Yeah.
you know, and at the same time, a choice that's going to sell.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's an open market for everyone. You can go from trainers to Lucozade to beer to alcoholic beverages to, I mean, there's so many things you can actually become creative with. Like I remember when I saw 2 years ago, Roxanne do a collaboration. It was all
with
sport.
Fila.
With Fila.
Yeah,
it was
amazing.
super sport.
Yeah.
I was shocked, and it was incredible. And evidently it went down really, really well. And it's good to know that that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Who would think you would see someone like Roxanne that makes dresses for, you know, red carpet, kicking it with Fila? Like,
But
who
it
does
still,
that?
but it
You
still
know?
looked like her. It still looked like her product.
Yeah, and it's still like a
Genius.
product. It was
Yeah.
still luxury, and I was trying to get 3 pieces from the backstage.
Yeah.
I was trying to mop it myself. So, you know, that's when I knew that they were desirable. And I think we have to just open ourselves up more in the fashion community to collaborate in so many different ways.
Even Telfar, like when you think, remember the Budweiser collab? Not just the UGG collab, but like even the Budweiser. So he did this T-shirt that you can put all over because it was called the drunk T-shirt.
Yeah.
So basically the reverse side was the opposite side. And it was so funny because we had customers asking like, oh, why the tag is the underside? And we're like, this is called a drunk T-shirt and this is a collaboration with Budweiser. And then people were like so much into it. Like,
No, it's incredible. I mean, but these things, I don't know if they're told to young people when they're starting out. And, you know, hopefully that's one extra person they need to add to their team. Someone that talks to them about the business.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, because yes, they get hyped up and everybody wears it and then they're bored. Because like you say, it's oversaturated. Not everybody wants to see everybody with their look, you know. Someone had asked me a while ago about the future, and I said, can we have at least 30% more exclusivity?
Yep.
You know, I'd rather it be more expensive, worth it, and you know, you don't walk into a room and there's 20 people with your dress on,
Yeah.
and you're spending that kind of money. You know, that's another reality check. Which, you know, like you say, it's good to have this information from an actual buyer.
Yeah.
Because why are you doing this? Like I said, to be fabulous, famous, or an influencer, or whatever, or to be a proper designer that is delivering a product that puts your name on the map, but for the right reason.
I feel like, oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go right ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're in a state right now though where there's like an influx of people who are becoming designers, of the sheer fact that I feel like being like a designer right now, or even being a creative in general, but mainly like fashion, I feel like it's like it's like being like a rapper, and I feel like everyone right now,
And then the rappers are getting all the jobs.
do you know what I mean? And I feel like kissing the right artists, yeah. And I feel like right now it's just we're in a state of like, I was talking about this to one of my friends, and she used to work at Elle and she used to work at Vogue. She was saying like, she's like, what happened to the times when we would care about like, you know, the old Italian man that was in the mountain that knows how to work with like this particular kind of leather that's been crafted out for many, many, many years. Now it's more like, put this popular person here, make them sell the clothes, and you know, let's just you know, like I think we were talking about earlier, future.
Yeah. Future doing, when you said what's the future, it's like Lonvan.
Yeah.
That's what the future is.
And
We really have to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, for culture, it's good, but in terms of the craftsmanship, it's kind of a couple steps back. And I feel like it kind of can be like a bit of a slap in the face to the people who have spent their entire lives wanting to study this and like they live and breathe this, and this is their true essence, because now they're probably thinking to themselves, I can't be a designer because I'm not popular. No longer is it the question of, it's not because I don't know the technical skills, because I'm not popular enough. So then people they put away their sewing kit and their whatever else, their measuring tapes, and they're like, let me go on Gram, let me do some outlandish stuff, let me become popular, pushing yourself further and further away from your craft, and by the time you get back into your craft, you've kind of forgotten what your message is. And then, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like we kind of also need to find like a fine balance in this industry as well, of like, sometimes it's not about like the popularity vote, sometimes it's actually just about the craft and the craftsman too.
Yeah,
you know?
but do you feel like there's, do you feel like there is that support though in the UK for those that kind of like learning, that kind of craftsmanship? Like for example, in France, they support artisan workers, they see things as a sort of traditional way of making things, and then there are funds for that, there's government support for those things. And at the same time, when this piece came out, I think it was in the Independent or the Guardian, I was then also seeing on my social media that there were lace companies in Nottingham, you know, that's a traditional skill, who were almost doing like Kickstarters to try and raise money to keep themselves going. So there's that other thing of like, is there the actual industry here? The make. I mean, you know, we were a knitwear company. We saw so many knitwear companies close during our time with Sibling. And there's nothing, you know, there's nothing to replace them. There's not the youngsters coming through that want to work in those. There's no incentive for them to work in those. And as you say, it's like...
Well, they're giving a job to culture. They're like, do we have a chance?
Yeah.
Unless we're a rapper or an artist. I mean, I'm not going to say that about Pharrell because I think he's done the work.
Yeah, 100%.
He's the one that started that whole situation of, you know.
Also, he has a nightmare job. I mean, I think that is one heavy, where's the crown for that job, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's been in the business. He has sold clothes.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're all trying to recreate Virgil. Virgil's no longer here. So you have to move on and find another way to sell, you know, or you'll get an influencer that will come in and take over a brand and slightly destroy it. So I'm not saying that every influencer does that, and I don't want to say that, you know, officially. But, you know, there's too many people out here that have incredible talent and are not given the chance because the brands don't know how to push them with their popularity. When the clothes are everything, it works. Perfect example, Kim Jones. Because Kim Jones was never an influencer. He barely is ever on social media. He doesn't give two about it, but he does the right thing because he understands the business. And everybody is at his life right now. Like not every movie star, but you go from cinema to the music industry to the art world. They have so much respect for him. Why? Because he also has a desire for quality. And because he grew up in Africa, he has a respect and honor for culture. You know, these are things that are really, really important to make it, not just being popular. You know, so for me, he's the perfect example of someone who desires the craft to be flawless.
But also, and sort of quietly, he's also very supportive of his friends. He was super supportive of me when Sibling, like Joe from Sibling, had cancer, and him would just check in, make sure I was okay, and, you know, all sorts of things like that. And those are things you don't forget. Like if he said to me, Cozette, I need you to help me out on this, I'd be like, drop everything and go and do it, you know, because there's a respect and you know that it's a mutual respect and it comes back to you. And he's very, very good at putting teams together, of putting people together who get on, but that comes from his own personality.
I think that's definitely what it is.
You know, and then it sort of spreads out. I mean, I'm making him sound like Mother Teresa, but he has, you know, he's not an asshole. Like, we've all worked for those
You don't have to kiss his
designers. Yeah.
You just have to be good at what you're doing. And yes, of course, it does help if you're in the right place at the right time and you meet someone and there's a chance there, because they don't have chances like we do to meet so many people because they're too busy. But if you get that break, you go right into him. He's like probably one of the most open people that I've met. And I met him before he started all this. And I thought he was quite angelic when I first met him. And I just knew he was going to make it because he had a vision about craftsmanship, consistency, and the business side, you know. And I think he's held it together so well. I know people have said, you know, he's, you know, kind of borderline of, you know, Karl Lagerfeld, meaning he can do multiple brands and hold it down. Not many people can do that, you know. We've had some incredible designs that come out of London that have done it, and it's amazing. But hopefully with the people that have still stayed in the game, these are the people that you look up to. These are the people that you try to understand how they holding it down. You know, like at the end of the day, like she says, 3 seasons, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of delusion in the fashion industry. And there's something about the generation that doesn't want to hear it. And that's sad because they still have the talent. But they must be more open. And I think with the colleges, they've got to start telling them the truth. Instead of passing them, saying they're great. Don't pass them. It's not your problem that they could make it because they have to pay. But you have to tell the truth because you have to turn out real talent.
Even the ultimate fashion school ending is a graduate show, right?
Yes.
But even in that kind of format, it's kind of influencing people to launch their brand, kind of rather to like work maybe for like the craftsmanship of other brand, or like, I feel it's like, it should be during the whole cursus of education, not just the graduate show to be the final goal in a way, but maybe something else, I don't know what, but like maybe it should be like more like maybe business people like interacting during the study and like maybe like guide some kind of people and
It's like any other job. Like if you're going out for being a lawyer, a doctor, you get an apprenticeship. What happened to that? That just disintegrated into air. They need to get them more involved in being involved in getting a job first, then coming out. Look at Lee McQueen. He didn't play any games. He went and worked a long time before he even thought of having his own brand. And I think this is the business model that needs to be set in the schools before they even think of doing their own brand. Because then they're wasting the time of buyers when they can't hold it together more than a couple of seasons.
And also you make connections. You make connections with factories. You make connections with your peers. And then when you want to launch, then you're in a better place. You're in a better foundation. You're also mentally probably a lot stronger. Even if you've worked for somebody who you absolutely couldn't stand, or the product was, I don't know, maybe more high street than you would have liked. You've learned so much, and if all you've learned is that's not how I'm going to treat people, and that's not the collections I'm going to do, you have probably also learned about range planning and the boring stuff, budgeting, working to a budget, perhaps other ideas, because maybe the brand you work for doesn't do a catwalk show, so maybe you start thinking about lookbooks or online or your socials and coming at things like slightly differently. But I say it to every student that I teach, I'm like, go out into industry and do a job and stick at it for a couple of years. You know, if
Yeah.
you really, really want to launch your brand, that urge will still be there. I mean, with, you know, with sibling, I mean, we're in our 30s, so that urge has still been there for like donkey's years. And then when you feel the time is right, you can do it. And then the chatter from everybody else doesn't affect you as much.
Yeah. Easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Easier said than done.
Because
yeah.
social media is frightening.
Yeah.
And it can make every young person feel they're not getting where they need to go, but not everybody can do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, I feel there's also this thing, this like designer feels they have this urge to do something very, very dramatic in a way to get like this kind of likes, this kind of attention, this kind of press.
A moment on Instagram.
You know, like it's something, it's a little bit toxic in a way because it's influenced a lot of people to go to the same direction. When
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And also this whole thing of community. I think people escape real talent by saying, oh, it's a community. No, we want to see the clothes.
Yeah.
We want to see what you're doing. We want to see quality.
Yeah.
You know, what were we just looking at? Ancuta Sarca. And you just stop and think. She started out with, you know, sustainability.
Yeah.
You know, using trainers and making them into shoes. And now, look how she's progressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about, oh, where is she? Or is she going to be okay this season? Oh, no, you want the next one that's coming out. And it's getting more and more and more luxurious, what she's making. And this looks like it's because she didn't try to come out with a bang immediately. Yeah. She took her time to develop the consumer that she's after. And now everybody's in. There is no one track that she goes to and say, oh, I can only sell to these people. Now any and everyone can come through because then they can see the consistency of how she's growing her brand.
Yeah.
And she's gone from the shoes she made to now boots. And I think with the show she had garments as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought it might not be for everybody, but nothing has to be for everybody. That's another thing. You're not doing a brand to sell to the world, but there's someone in each country, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'd like to see how Sinead progresses because her clothing is all about size and, you know, and bigger bodies and stuff like that. And I do look at it and I think, well, perhaps not the most commercial thing, but there's definitely something there. And there is definitely a market for it. And I'd really be interested to see how she kind of grows with that.
Yeah.
And all of the new gen people, how they grow, you know, over a period of however 3 years or whatever it is while they're being incubated.
I mean, I thought of that also when I saw Nancy from New Gen. I thought, okay, where is this going? And, you know, it gave me a little bit of what Sapriya Lili did, which is really simple things that just fell on the body, you know. Sapriya is still different because I think she brings her culture with color, you know, and softness to the woman, who I feel I've always liked Sapriya Lili. But when I saw Nemsi, that was another version of that, where it was all delicate and beautiful, and it wasn't trashy or anything. And then you saw it on the red carpet, bam, like instantly, because she took her craft seriously. Touched the clothes, flawless. Touched the fabric, insane, you know. And like, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can wear it, but it's just enough in every country that she can sell worldwide, you know, so globally. I don't know, what can I say? I think in the UK, that's one of the most important things for me, is that the UK designers really learn more and more about their business side. I don't think they ever have to worry about creativity, because when you think about it, in every single brand on the planet, you've got at least 3 English people in the creative team. Every brand, across the board. So we never have to worry about creativity coming from this country. What we have to worry about is sustaining your creativity in a way that is commercial enough to sell, or you're not going to have a business. You're not going to have a job, you know? So hopefully closing with this, I'd like to say thank you to our guest speakers, and hopefully someone will see this. And I hope personally that it does help anyone that's trying to come into the industry and keep themselves in. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just say, thank you. And thank you, Show Studio.
Thank you.